Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Eugene, Oregon. Had such a great time at Harvest Church International. Just wonderful, hungry people. We'll obviously be here Wednesday night again as well. We've been here Sunday through Wednesday. But if you're in the Grand Junction, Colorado area, we'll be there at Faith Heights Church Sunday morning, Sunday night, getting into end times. We're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. Because the rapture is signless, but the second coming has sign after sign after sign. So you're watching things that are happening every single week. Remember we talked about the foxes on the Temple Mount last week or 2 weeks ago. That's pretty crazy that literally the Temple Mount would be so desolate that foxes showed up. So the rabbis are like, wow, the third temple's ready to be rebuilt. But probably the biggest thing that's happened since we were together was all this stuff with, remember, Israel went into Lebanon, went into Beirut with drones and took out the missile. Basically, it's a missile factory where they fired at, and it's amazing they hit the trucks that are refueling trucks for the missiles and didn't hurt anybody else. Well, of course, Hezbollah said they would fire back. They fired surface to surface and anti-tank missiles at Israel. Didn't hit any Israeli tanks, but this was up in the northern part of the Golan. You've got Hezbollah firing missiles into Israel. Israel retaliated with airstrikes and with anti-tank missiles themselves. And so Hezbollah was mouthing off saying, why are they doing that? Israel released the photograph yesterday of this huge guided missile base in the Bekaa Valley. Now, why is that a big deal? Remember those missiles, they were being able to be fired just wherever, kind of errantly. Now they're retrofitting them with guided missile systems. So in that factory, they've got warheads that they're assembling. So what Hezbollah is doing now is moving all that stuff from that factory and taking it into homes, thinking they'll be able to assemble them outside of that factory. So crazy. You have Iran doing that in the Bekaa Valley via Hezbollah. And then yesterday, Iran, they showed a picture of it on the Jerusalem Post. There's a huge, massive, brand new base in Iraq that Iran's doing an air base. So then Iran comes out with all this propaganda yesterday. This is crazy. It came out with all this stuff yesterday saying, you know, if we don't have the sanctions relieved from us, we're going to go ahead and enrich up to 20%. It'll only take 2 days to do that. In the midst of that, 2 intelligence agencies came out saying Iran's already done that. So yesterday, America imposed even more sanctions on Iran. And you got Iran doing crazy things with their tankers. They're turning off their beacons as they come into the waters next to Syria. And the same thing's been happening in the Mediterranean Sea. So it's wild seeing how they keep trying to circumvent the sanctions against them. The sanctions are against them because they publicly said they want to annihilate Israel. So all this stuff is pointing to what's going to happen right after the rapture, and that is the Ezekiel 38 war. But man, you're seeing the players come on the field. You had the Revolutionary Guard, 3 generals from the Revolutionary Guard and from the Al-Qads and from Hezbollah meet this last week. The last time they met like this in Beirut, it was before the 2006 war. The consensus has been this meeting is for them to get ready to attack Israel from the north. So Israel's moving troops up to the north to get ready for this. In the middle of that, you had Benjamin Netanyahu talk about, hey, we're ready for whatever. He said it out loud many times. He's even emboldened to the fact that he's going to go down to where Hebron is and have a public appearance, be the first prime minister that's gone to Hebron, and really basically done a speech at the tomb of the patriarch. So that's cool to see that happening. So you got Russia freaking out over America going into Syria. Now, we've talked about that little section of Syria where the Assyrians are from. America went and fired at Idlib and killed about 40 Al-Qaeda fighters that had been threatening some of our soldiers. Russia freaked out, said, hey, you didn't ask for our permission. But remember, Russia and Turkey and the Syrians kind of did a ceasefire. So you have all this conglomerate of all these nations that are doing things that are pointing to what's going to happen after the rapture of the church. So it is pretty phenomenal that you see Saudi Arabia and Jordan basically have this friendship with Israel, because those are the 2 nations that don't attack Israel in the Ezekiel 38 war. So you had an earthquake off the coast of Eugene, Oregon. You had earthquakes in Oklahoma this last week. You got all these radical natural things pointing to Jesus is just about to come back. So what do? We always go to the Scripture to make it clear. Israel made a nation. Jerusalem won back. Hebrew language restored, Ethiopian Jews brought back, fertility of the land of Israel, revival of the Roman Empire. You got the Temple Mount Institute that's ready to start having sacrifices. You have all these signs. You have 172 different species of predatory birds. You have all the tangible physical signs. You have fish showing up in the Dead Sea. You have the foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. You have the red heifer that's been found. They have multiple red heifers they can use for sacrifices. All these things. Men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. Everything that the Bible said you'd see right before the coming of the Lord has all been happening, about 50 major signs. But then you go beyond that to signals. You had the blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. I mean, how radical is that to have 4 blood red moons in a row? People say, well, nothing happened. No, they're indicators. Just like when you put your blinker on, you're indicating you're about to turn. That's pretty wild to have 4 in a row. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. That's pretty wild. You had Mercury do fly by the sun, does it 5 times in a century, went down directly over the Temple Mount at sundown. Orion changed its instrument to hammer. You had the planets form a sickle, the moon forms a sickle, so you had hammer and sickle on the same day. That's Russia's symbol. That's what's going to attack Israel right after the rapture. So God's showing them you're getting ready to go through the threshing floor. Pretty amazing. And then after that, which is just bizarre, you had the Bethlehem star this last year, first time in 2,000 years. Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus come together. So what's the purpose of all these signs? What's the purpose of coming every Wednesday? The whole purpose is to accelerate. As we see the finish line, we run faster. I had a guy go, Joe, if you preach on the coming of the Lord, just get everybody's hopes up. That's exactly right. He wants you happy and hopeful. All these signs are about, He wants you to know how much He loves you, and you're about to see Him face to face. So what do? Well, let's accelerate. It's not escape theology, it's a hustle theology. Help your local church, help your local pastor. Do whatever you can to be engaged. Don't fit church into your life. It is your life. Jesus is just about to come back. You're watching all of the setup around the Middle East and around the world get set up for what happens right after the church leaves. So my friend, this is it. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the bright morning star, lily of the valley. He's about to come back. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.